Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go! And welcome to installment 107 of Ballsy Uncut. However you're taking this podcast in, I appreciate it. Either live right now on X, Facebook, YouTube. We also have an Instagram account at Ballsy Uncut. Or later in tape form. I do appreciate it. Tell all your friends. This is the place to come to talk. Well, we talk all types of sports here. Congratulations, by the way, to the U of S women's basketball team for winning their third national championship in the last 10 years. We talk junior hockey, SJHL, WHL, and even the amateur ranks. And, of course, all levels of football. As this is the place to come to talk to the most talk about and hear conversations with and about the most underappreciated athlete in Canada, especially when it comes to professional. That would be football players. And we have this show during the season, or during the year, pardon me, called Ballsy Uncut. And then after every Rider game, we have the Our Balls Are Bigger post-game show. There's the shirts. And if you'd like a shirt, you can DM me at Ballsy Uncut or Michael Ball Facebook page, or on Instagram or X at The Real Ballsy on X and Ballsy Uncut on X. Or you could always call me, like send me a message via text, 306-526-7979 if you'd like a shirt. $25. And I want to thank my one sponsor, Hammer Time Roofing, for getting on board. Going to show you their logo here if you're watching. There we go. Hammer Time Roofing in Saskatoon area. Give Kevin a call. Him and his wife Chantel have a great business called 262 Roof. Anyway, we are raising money for Glenn Love and his Love Life ALS Foundation. John Ryan's purchased $500 worth of shirts. People like Matt Young. There's a bunch of people. Daryl Holing, one of my old bosses in radio, purchasing a shirt. $25. DM me. I'll tell you how to e-transfer, and then get me your address, and I'll send the shirts out to you. I'll be doing that probably next week. This week's a little busy for me with juggling my work schedule over at Crestview Chrysler, 601 Albert Street. You want to get in to a new vehicle? I've got some great deals on the lot, new and used. Just come on in and ask for Ballsy. I'm the guy by the CFL helmets. Or give me a call, 306-526-7979. But it's a big week for my family because my firstborn, Ethan Ball, you see over my shoulder, played his the majority of his college career at UND, got a degree, and then came back to Canada to play for the Dinos and is eligible for the CFL draft. And he's been working hard in the offseason, getting ready for the combine here coming up this weekend. And Mike Miller has been announced as the offensive coordinator for the I want to make sure I got this right here. Give me a second here. Just going to call this up here. I got the itinerary from my son. Now I'm going to bite my tongue with some of the things I don't like about the combine until after the combine and the draft's done. Just to kind of, so my son doesn't face any backlash over it. You got to watch as a dad. You can call it like you see it, and I will, but you got to pick your spots. Anyway, coaching staff has been set. Mike Miller, the quarterback's coach for the Argos, will serve as the offensive coordinator. Brent Monson, formerly of the Stamps, now the D coordinator for the Tiger Cats, will serve as the D coordinator. Bunch of different coaches from various teams on the staff, as well as positional coaches. The combine features a look at close to 75 players competing to boost their stock for the upcoming draft on April 29th. Action gets underway at the Affinity Soccer Center on Friday, March 21st, with a bench with the 3-cone shuttle 40, the bench press in the afternoon, and then they've got their 2 days of practices, 11 a.m. to 12:45 on the Saturday, and then 9 a.m. and 10:45 Saskatchewan time on the Sunday. It's open to media who have been accredited. I have not received my accreditation yet. Hopefully I get that, but who knows? They might not let me come in. I call it like I see it. Sometimes that ruffles some feathers. I only do it because I love the league and want to see it succeed. But anyway, waiting for my accreditation there. Otherwise, I'll find a way to get in because only Rider season ticket holders are allowed in. Another head scratcher, but we'll talk about that another time. I want to thank my great sponsors. Hammer Time Roofing for the shirts, 262 Roof. Gotta reach here. Ward Tire Craft, 101 Dudney Avenue in Regina. They got a location in Saskatoon. Going in the Regina location, say hi to Michael Barth. Michael Barth, tell him Ballsy sent you 10% off. The great gang, Tim, Joe and the gang at District Brewing in Regina, 8th Avenue. Their product available in Saskatchewan liquor stores. They came out last June with the Super Squeeze Seltzer Mango Lime, and this one here would be Passion Fruit Lime Fruited Seltzers. They're awesome. They got their other products too, IPA, Pilsner, light beer, you name it. So go check out District Brewing stuff. You want to support local, you want to support Canadian. Doesn't get any better than the gang over at District Brewing. AGT Foods Canada, speaking of Canadian, with Murad Al Khatib, his brother Omar, and Murad's wife Michelle. Murad and Michelle do a lot in the football community. Paul Waldo at Royal LePage, three-time Grey Cup champ. He's been through a combine. 306-502-5355, getting the real estate game with Paul Waldo. Couple of good local guys, Landon and Nathan, Boys Next Door window cleaning. That's coming up here in the spring. They also have snow removal and the track lighting. They're multi-faceted company, so check them out. And my social media team with Dean and Nicole Gerhardt Studios. But back to the combine. Good luck to the young men who are taking part in Regina in the testing and the interviewing and the measurements and everything. It's the only time they get to do it in their lifetime, so it could be stressful, no doubt. But I wish each and every one of them a great showing. And being a part of this now, I've watched it from afar as a media guy. Actually, I'm the first guy to ever broadcast the CFL draft on radio live. Did that on the radio couple years ago as my commitment to the game. Of course, they don't do that anymore. But I'm still trying to decide whether I'm going to do that here, do a live draft show. Just that I might be tied up with my own son. So I may take my media hat off for that day and just be a dad. I think that might be the way to go, but I haven't quite decided yet because I like supporting all Canadian football athletes. And with regards to that, because it's the combine, I'm only going to do 2 Ballsy Uncuts this week and just focus on being at the Affinity Place Soccer Center and watching the proceedings. But today on the show, Josh Hagerty, who did do the combine, but as he points out in the interview that I did with him, he did it during COVID, so it was wacky and different and not in person, which was weird. So we'll talk to Josh Hagerty, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He and his former Husky teammate, Riley Pickett, along with some of their old college friends who are in the CFL, they're running a couple of football camps geared towards the special teams. That's interesting. I don't know if I've ever heard of that before. So we will talk to him about that. And we'll also talk to Jay Prepchuk, who has been coaching quarterbacks in Canada for over 30 years. He's out in BC, but he's a Regina guy. It's the Prepchuk quarterback camp. It's been going on 3 decades. So we'll talk to him about how that position's evolved. And things are looking up for the Canadian quarterback with the likes of Trey Ford and Nathan Rourke in the CFL. Curtis Rourke down in Indiana. Elgersma out of Laurier, who went to that Buffalo Pro Day. So we'll talk to him about that. We got more of Ballsy Uncut coming up. Thanks for checking us out. Well, this guy I'm talking to now, Josh Hagerty, this is a guy that is a story of excellence. I don't want to say that wasn't expected, but it it is kind of a feel good story. Here's what I mean. During COVID, I did a top 50, kind of like the NFL, only on a really shoestring budget. I did the top 50 Can West players, and I polled coaches and players around the league. And you did make the top 50, but you were at 44, okay? Not picked by me, picked by coaches and picked by players. Yet you made the CFL, and what are you going into now? Your sixth year?
Fifth year.
Fifth year, Grey Cup champion, bittersweet because you didn't get to play in the game in your hometown of Regina, but now you're on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Do you still got to pinch yourself that you're a professional football player with the Grey Cup ring? I'm not saying that oh, it's a shocker you made the league, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, you came from kind of down here to a regular special teams demon now and a defensive player.
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey, honestly. The last 4 years have gone by so fast, and even right before the draft process, like, I didn't really have super high expectations and stuff until I started to get, the national combine invite and some emails from some teams and things like that. But that was kind of the story of like my football career this whole way, I guess. Like, coming out of high school too, like, it wasn't till midway through my grade 12 year when I played Team Canada, had a really good grade 12 year, that I realized, okay, yeah, I could actually play post-secondary. It wasn't even really on my mind before, because I felt like I was always a late bloomer, kind of developing into my body as I got a lot bigger in grade 11 and 12, and just kind of kept persevering, head down. Like, I've always been known for working hard, and that's just kind of what's helped me along this way, is being a really hard worker, being a really smart football player, and just dedicating myself. And it's gone really well since.
And that's what you need to be a professional athlete. And you have already had a pretty good journey here, like Toronto, Edmonton. You're in Winnipeg now. Just talk, at any point during this time, have you thought about maybe, like, cut here, released by Edmonton, brought back by Edmonton, now going to Winnipeg? Like, have you ever thought about giving up the game at this point, or to this point?
Yeah, like, you have moments and stuff. Like, I don't think people really realize how tough it is. Like, obviously everyone knows how tough it is physically and stuff, like playing for 7 months straight every single week. It's really tough on the body, but a lot mentally too. Like, in Toronto, had some injuries and stuff that put me out for like half the season, or even my last year there, I had a broken hand and then came back and then dislocated my shoulder. So I was out for most of the season. So that's really tough to deal with mentally and stuff, to try and get over that, stay engaged, especially when all your teammates are having fun, you're winning all these games and you don't get to be a part of it. You feel almost like separated from the team in a sense. So it's really tough, and it puts some doubt in your mind too at some points. And even too, like, I was in Toronto for 3 years, and they loved me there from the moment I got there, and it was a great relationship with me and the organization. And I never really thought that I was going to ever get released. So that was a real kind of eye opener too, that like, wow, like, I really didn't see it coming, and other people didn't see it coming for myself. So you really never know. And that could have been my last game I ever played. And a lot of guys, that does happen to them. So luckily, like, I had a pretty good resume, or a lot of games played, and Chris Jones was with us in Toronto. So luckily that relationship there led me to Edmonton, and then having a couple good games there, and then come back from bye week and I get released because a receiver just became Canadian midway through the season. So there's only so many roster spots. So since I was the last guy in the door, I was the first one out when that decision was made. So luckily, like, some injuries happened too there where I got to come back.
Let me stop you. I heard the story goes like this, without getting too much into it. I heard you got released, then you're driving back, like, to Saskatoon, and you almost get to Saskatoon, and they call you and say they want you to come back. Is that indeed how that happened? Like, it's kind of a topsy-turvy roller coaster type of thing.
Yeah, that did happen. So I got released. So we had a bye week. I came back, brought a bunch more stuff back with me because I'd only been there for 4 weeks, just got into a new condo. And then going in for day one, they called me in the office and told me that they were releasing me and everything. And then the next day I was driving back to Saskatoon. I was about 2 hours out, and they called me and they're like, hey, this Canadian linebacker who we thought was going to be healthy for this week isn't actually going to be able to go this week. So can you turn around and come back? And I was like, well, what the heck? Like, you knew that he wasn't going to be healthy this week, so why did you make this roster decision this early into the week? So then I was like, well, am I going to be on the active roster or PR? How's that going to work? And they said, well, we'll start you on the practice roster, and then you'll most likely be playing for the game. But I said, I'm not going to do that. Like I have my whole condo in my car right now. I'm almost home. Like I'm not coming back just to go into the hotel again and potentially dress that week. Like I've never been on PR in my life in the CFL, and I didn't really want to go down that route and be there by myself miserable on the practice roster. So yeah, so then I told them like politely, no, thank you. If anything else happens or you guys need a guy, like give me a
Hmm.
call and stuff. And yeah,
And they called you and you went back, or
yeah,
they just
about two weeks later.
yeah. So okay, man, that takes a big set of balls. Like you, like listen, you no disrespect, but you're still cutting your teeth. You're not like a perennial all-star, right? But you threw your balls on the table and said, "Hey, this is what's going to happen." Like, did you have a did you have a talk with your dad, my old buddy Jeff, or how did that with your parents, or how did that shake down, or was that just a manly decision from Josh Hagerty?
Yeah, like of course I was making all of these decisions while I was driving back. So I was calling my parents, calling my agent, my fiance, everyone, and being like, what do I do here? Like I was pretty mad, obviously, that they released me under those circumstances after I had a couple good games. So I knew my worth, that I knew another team would come pick me up, just being a now veteran DB who has played on
Mhm.
special teams for around 50 games. I knew that I wasn't going to get like anything guaranteed because I haven't played that much on defense, but I still knew my worth and knew that injuries were very common in the CFL. So I knew I was going to get a call at some point, so I didn't want to go back and settle on a PR. So I think that that was the right decision in the moment too. Then it was also nice to just get a little bit of a break too mentally. And then yeah, when they called back and were like, "Hey, this guy's out for the season now. Like, we need you to come back, and you're gonna be playing for the rest of the season." And then it was obviously a no-brainer from there. And then the familiarity was easy to go back to.
So we got rivaling shirts. So I do a post game show after every Rider game called the because CFL used to have a slogan called "Our balls are bigger." Okay, and
Hmm.
they dropped the trademark, and I trademarked it. So I've got the
Hmm.
"Our
I
balls
like
are
it.
bigger" T-shirt, and I'm selling them for charity. Glenn Love, a former linebacker in the CFL, is ALS, so I'm trying to raise money for him. And you've got the Next Level Football Academy shirt on. There you go, looking good,
Yeah.
Hags. So tell me about that. What's that all about? I saw online. That's why I got you on partly. And I like talking to you too. But you and Riley Pickett, a U of S Husky guy too. You guys got something going on. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so me and Riley, we started up a special teams academy for high school, junior, and youth sports players. So we felt that there was a lack of camps and coaching for players that want to go into special teams, as we know that that's a huge part of the Canadian game, and most Canadians in the CFL have to play special teams. And that's an area that you don't get any coaching or any knowledge of when you're like, I guess, entering in the CFL. Like even college doesn't hit on it that much. There's kind of a stigma around it that guys don't really want to play it. It's not the flashiest of things, but we've learned so much our first few years in the league that we want to be able to transfer that knowledge and just tell kids the importance of learning these special team skills and how they'll also translate to offense and defense too. It's just going to make you an overall better football player, smarter, more versatile, ready to get on a field and make a team as well. So yeah, we're offering a camp here April 12th, 13th in the new Martinsville facility, and then another one April 19th in Vancouver. So we got those two camps going on with about 8 or 9 CFL guys, most of them from Saskatchewan. So we'll have a couple offensive line coaches, defensive line, linebackers, kickers, punters, long snappers, and we're going to take them through some drills, some compete periods, and then also teach them how to watch film too. Like teach them how to study your opponent, how to recognize schemes, and then how to self-critique after games too, so that you can improve certain things like that that you don't really get the knowledge of at a younger age. So we want to help them get ahead of that now.
So, Josh, when you got to the league, what was the biggest eye-opening thing for you? What was it? Was it the study? I know you're a studious guy, but was it the study aspect, critiquing yourself, and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, like the speed was a big part of it. Like I'm a pretty fast player, I'd like to say, so it was still a jump up for sure because these guys are very fast, very talented. A lot of them coming from the NFL, they're big D1 schools. So the physicality and the speed is definitely eye-opening, but you get used to it pretty quick. but just the attention to detail, all the little things that the veterans and the all-stars do. They're in there at 6 a.m., they're leaving at 4 or 5 p.m. Like that level of commitment that you see from those guys. They're watching 6, 7 hours of film a day, some guys. So like those little things was very different than college.
Okay. Josh, why Winnipeg? Why the Winnipeg Blue Bombers?
Mostly they showed a lot of interest early on in free agency. They valued me as a player on defense and special teams, and it was an easy decision for me as they have a great culture. They have a great coaching staff. They've been very successful for a number of years now. And that just shows like what those coaches and that organization has done. They have very little turnover, so guys clearly want to stay there and they want to play for that team, which is something I really like. And I've only heard good things too from guys that have come there that I've played with, and also just the like for Canadians too. Like Coach O'Shea is big on Canadians and playing special teams and making that a big emphasis of their team. And even on defense too, like more so than others, they play a lot of Canadians and they're not too worried about the ratio. And that's something I really value too. And I'm just also excited to be a part of that awesome fan base too.
Yeah, it's great that I think the league is changing a little bit in that you're seeing more guys that aren't traditional to like you look at that LaBrosse in Calgary. He played field half a lot. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
they'd take three Canadian offensive linemen and throw them there, and you might have a Canadian safety. Like now, guys seem to be open to playing Canadians in different spots, and I think that speaks to the what's the word I'm looking for? It speaks to the way the player has evolved in Canada, the Canadian player.
Absolutely. Winnipeg also like they run Cromdy at Sam too, which is not a typically a Canadian position, and they had Tyrell Ford out at field corner, so that's two Canadian DBs right there, with the occasional safety or nickel Canadian DB coming in as well. So I think you're seeing the talent get a lot better. I think our coaching and development and athleticism of Canadian DBs are getting a lot better. You're starting to see a large number of them on each team. And I just think it speaks to how far like Canadian football has come, and I really like to see it too. Like I've been a huge fan of the CFL since I was a little kid, and growing up, there was maybe one or two Canadians on the whole team that I could recognize their names and stuff, and so it is really cool to see more Canadians on teams, and especially in these positions like receiver, DBs, and guys that are able to start and make an impact too, and be some of the top players in the league.
Well, I don't think the league does a spectacular job of especially highlighting the Canadians like at the Combine in Regina. I think they could do a better job. They had a great first one with the CFL week with the Combine here. Were you in that passing academy that time with Nias? Were you in that one? Were you
Yeah,
playing? Yeah, you
yeah.
were.
So I was in both passing academies. The first year in Regina, and then the second year in Winnipeg.
Winnipeg,
We
yeah.
we won both of those.
Yeah, yeah. So CFL had something going there, and then it kind of just they don't do it anymore. So we've got the Combine coming up here in Regina. It's a big weekend for a lot of kids, as you would know, rewinding. What advice do you have for the kids getting ready for the Combine here and just the whole thing, the interviews, the whole process?
Yeah, like unfortunately during COVID we didn't have an in-person combine, so everything was
Yeah.
virtual. So you don't get that same
Oh, that's
I
right.
guess I guess
Yeah.
the nerves weren't there of going and performing live in front of these guys or in front of competitors, so I can't really speak to that, but I just say that just trust yourself. You're there for a reason. You were picked there for a reason, and you got to trust yourself. Be calm, cool, collective. Don't stress about things. Don't overthink things, because that's when usually you make mistakes. If you just go out there and play football, that's usually the best thing you can do.
How bittersweet was that Grey Cup? The fact you wanted here but you didn't play. Like it's nice you helped them get to there, but you weren't playing in the game.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking for me. Unfortunately, I got a pretty bad foot injury in our last regular season game against Montreal when I was playing on defense, and it just didn't heal in time. I was doing everything I could to try and get ready to play that week, but we barely put on a cleat. So unfortunately, just roster decisions, they didn't want to take that risk and me be out the whole game after the first play. So that sucked a lot. It wasn't very fun watching on the sideline, but it made it all worthwhile when all the guys that we grinded with all season got it done, and we got that win at home. That was super special to have all my family there, to be able to celebrate with them and my team. It was the first championship I've ever won at any level, so it was very special.
your dad and I were teammates. We won a championship together with the Rams back in 1993. Him and I together, undefeated team. So I know your dad well. This is my second last question. Did your family collectively bang your heads? Like, you guys are all moving to Saskatoon now. Like, did you guys all, like, what happened here? Like, you're Regina people and now you're all Saskatoon people. That's kind of a crazy story. Did you all get drunk or something and just decide what's going on there, bro?
Yeah, I guess they all wanted to follow me to Saskatoon. No, but my sister, she made the switch from U of R to U of S, just for
Yeah.
schooling and better track program, and she's been killing it in track and field
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
She's a national level athlete, and so then me and her being up here too, and probably for the long term, my parents they had an opportunity with work to come up here and be closer to us. And they like the city a lot, and so they would just want to be closer to us. So I love it. It's gonna be great to have them in the city and all of us to be together up in
Yeah.
Saskatoon.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just kidding you. When are you getting married? Have you picked a date to get married or what? 'Cause you said fiance.
Yeah, yeah. Next April, late April,
Okay,
right
man.
before training camp.
Okay, and lastly, and just as important, where do we find more information on the camp in Martinsville and out in BC?
Yeah, you could go to www.nextlevelacademies.com or find us on our Instagram page. We have links through there. Yeah, check out our websites and the stories that we have of all of our coaches. We have a ton of experience. We've got guys like Jorgen Hughes, a 11-year CFL, NFL vet. A kicker like Dean Faithful has been a pro kicker and a coach in all over the world. So it's a great opportunity. We think that this isn't offered anywhere else, and we're super excited. So check it out.
All right, Josh, thanks for this, man. Best of luck in Winnipeg and good luck with these camps, okay?
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, here with Jay Prepchuk, quarterback whisperer here in Canada. How are you, bro?
Hey, fantastic. Thanks for having me. How's the weather there? Is the snow melted yet or
Yeah, you know what? It was good, and then it wasn't good, and now it snowed last night about 10 centimeters as we talk, but it's supposed to be gone here soon, so it's just another Saskatchewan March. We're not like you guys out west there, but you know what? It's been a brutally cold winter, no doubt about it. How's your winter been?
it's been okay actually. We got a little bit of snow. It stayed for a little longer than we expected, but I just got off the golf course a couple hours ago. So uh it's actually a beautiful day in Vancouver today, so we
Yeah.
can't complain here. But a little bit of snow and lasted a little longer than we usually get here. So good
Yeah.
for the skiers.
Yeah, so you rub it in a bit with golfing, but Rory McIlroy just won the Players' Championship in a playoff hole. Who's your favorite golfer right now?
He did. You know what? I like Rory. I really do. And I'm not just jumping on that bandwagon. I kind of feel sorry for JJ. I mean, the guy hits a great shot on 17, and he's just like, what's up? Where's my ball? Right? He
Yeah,
was surprised that it went in the water there. It was like, I felt sorry for the guy, right? But all
yeah,
he had to do was hit a 9 iron instead of an 8 iron, and he would have been in good shape, right? So it's too bad that he had to lose it on a good shot from him, right? So
hmm
I like Rory. You know what? I obviously love Tiger, right? I just, you know what? When I watch, I just want to. I want overtime. I want extra holes, right? I just want to see those guys continue to play. I hate it when there's 5, 6 stroke leads, right? So,
hmm Hey, do you watch the made for TV golf in LA, like where they do it at SoFi Stadium and stuff?
yeah, I watched a little bit of it. I'm not into it. I don't know. I can't get into it. It's just not my thing. It's still, we have the Masters, of course, that we're all loaded for, right? But it was nice to get some great golf this past weekend, right? So, but nothing beats the Masters, of course, right?
Yeah, and that's why I love watching golf. I like watching golf like at this time of year, and I like watching early season baseball, like Grapefruit League, but more the early part of the baseball season because it gets us in Saskatchewan where we're snowy and landlocked. It gets us thinking about the spring. That's kind of why I watch those two sports early on.
Right, I gotcha. Once the curling season's kind of over, right?
Yeah, you got that. Yeah, you got that right. And actually, we're talking football. We're talking all sports. Ben Hebert again, the former Regina Thunder player, going to another world championship. He's going to be on a podcast of mine here, or an installment in a few days. But talk about a good multi-sport athlete there, one of the greatest of all time.
Absolutely. It's it's fantastic. And remember, I'm a Regina boy too, right?
Yeah,
So still have my roots there, and remember the days of growing up at Old Taylor Field, and still cheering for the Riders, especially today
yeah,
on St. Patrick's Day. But
yeah,
it's been tough these last few years, as you know, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
we're hanging in there, and hopefully this year we'll have a better result.
Are you a green beer guy? Do you like green beer?
Green beer is good. Any kind of beer is good for me. I'll
Hey,
take green. I held off until after the interview just for you today. So
okay, good, buddy. Good,
we're
good.
going to get at it after this.
Okay, good. Thanks. Also, we're coming up on March Madness. Do you watch the NCAA basketball tournament?
I do. You know what? I don't get into any pools or anything like that, but I just love it. Sometimes I'm down in Mexico actually at around this time, and it's kind of cool to see all the spring breakers down there and watching the games and so on. And again, when I watch a game, I just want to enjoy, watching a close game. And it's great to see the underdogs, come on, and the ladder seeded teams come on with the big upsets. And of course, there's always the upsets in the first round. And it's just great to see the action. And it's good to see it. Like, at least those guys are playing defense. It's not like the NBA, right? It's a lot more entertaining. I mean, I can't watch the NBA until maybe the finals, but it's great to see those guys, just working their butts off and, playing for that championship.
Okay, so Jay Prepchuk, you are a quarterback coach here in Canada, running your camps, even in Regina. Although this year maybe time constraints won't let you come here this spring. How many years for you doing this now?
32 straight years now. So it's hard to believe, but it's exciting for me. I still get up on camp days and get a little nervous, get a little excited, and kind of figure out where I'm going. Am I going to be in Regina or Lethbridge or Calgary or Edmonton or Victoria, Nanaimo? It just doesn't matter where I am. I get pumped up, I get excited, and of course, with our weather out here, we've already had 5 camps that we've completed, and again, it's just like the first year when I, going to make sure, do I have everything? Do I have my t-shirts? Do I have everything all organized? The receiver coach, been really fortunate to have guys like G. Roy Simon coach with us. And, it's just, it still is really, really exciting for me.
Mm-hmm. How many quarterbacks do you have generally at a camp? Like, do you try to make it as close to, you don't want to go to camps where you have like one guy, the main coach, but he's got like 15 quarterbacks. How does that work with regards to coaching versus player ratio?
Exactly. And you know what? That's a really good question. And more and more parents are asking that question. And I wish more would, because that is very, very important. So for me, I average anywhere between 8 quarterbacks and 20 to 30 quarterbacks. But the more quarterbacks I get, the more coaches I get. So I load it up, and sometimes people are last minute. Oh, can I still register for my kid? And I said, yeah, well, I make sure that I get enough coaches. So I'm usually about 1 to 6, 1 to 8, kind of in that area. And whenever I go to a place like Nanaimo or Victoria, I'll make sure that all the community coaches are always welcome to come and, watch us as receivers and watch the receivers coaches. We just had Braden Linnaeus, who you all know in Regina, of course, and he's with the BC Lions now. But Braden, I coached in high school years ago. He reminded me of being at a camp when he was 14 years old with G. Roy Simon coaching. So we want to make sure that definitely that our ratio is, like I said, 1-6, 1-8, and we just keep adding the coaches and invite all the community coaches to come out. I mean, it's like a level 3 certification when you watch guys like, G. Roy and Paris Jackson, Lamar Durant, coaches like that are, teaching the fundamentals and the basics. And it's just, and when I go to a city, I like to have the junior quarterbacks come out often. My last camp in Regina, Noah Pelche came, and all the Rams quarterbacks came, which was really exciting for me to have those guys at my camp.
I think it's an exciting time to be a Canadian quarterback. It's been a position that's, I've said, if we were If it was hockey and you told a kid that he could play goalie all the way up to pros and then he had to switch to defense or something, a lot of parents would choke you out. In football, it's kind of like, well, I guess my kid can't be a quarterback at the pro level, but it's nice to see that the Trey Fords and those kind of guys are getting a shot. Now, Nathan Rourke, I know we're talking about elite talents, but I think it does open the door for kids to dream at the quarterback position, which I thought was always stupid here in Canada, where, you know, it's the most important position in football, but be damned if we can have a Canadian play it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I remember back to, my days when I was in training camp with the Rough Riders way back when in 1983, and Coach Ferrigelli was there. And, you know what, I felt that I competed with those guys. Mind you, it was difficult. And the reason I say I didn't make it was because Joe 747 Adams, John Huffnagel, and of course, they just paid Homer Jordan, the star out of Clemson. They just paid him a whack of cash to sign. So otherwise, I felt that, I could play with those guys. And, around those days, of course, Greg Vavra had a shot, the University of Calgary star, and, Julio Caravetta had a little bit of a go at it. And you just hope that those guys do get a shot. I mean, Trey Ford, there's no other athlete like him really in the CFL, let alone quarterback or whatever, right? We see that, this kid is a star. Let's give him a chance and let's make it happen for him, right? So I just hope that, more and more quarterbacks get chances. I know the CFL, of course, invited the quarterbacks last year, the Canadian quarterbacks last year. I think that's a good, hopefully they just don't use them as arms in camp. Hopefully they actually do get a good look at, those young fellows. But, guys like Noah Pelche and, the quarterbacks all throughout, the kid from University of Manitoba.
Tuchinski,
yeah. So, and it's going to be interesting because, what's going to happen, see if these UBC guys, they're from Texas, right? Rooker and England. Yeah. So are they, because they have an American passport, are they going to get more of a look than, some of the other guys? So let's just hope that that kind of changes. And of course, the Laurier guy, right?
Elgersma, yeah.
Let's see if
he, why do you think there's a little bit like, our kids grow up playing the game. They grew up playing the Canadian game for the most part. Although I do want to touch on something in BC that kind of sticks in my craw. But these guys grow up with the motion. They grow up with the 12th man. I get it if you're saying, okay, well, they're playing against youth sports athletes, whereas opposed to Americans might be playing against SEC competition. So the competition is a little better in the United States, no doubt about it. But I wonder why Canadian quarterbacks don't get more of a crack. And I think the league needs to incentivize, like right now how it sits, I believe if you're a Canadian quarterback, you just count as a quarterback. You don't count as a Canadian quarterback. I think there should be some sort of extra caveat for them to play Canadians at quarterback.
Yeah, no question. Let's just get out. And if there's 5 quarterbacks at camp, give them all a shot, right? It doesn't matter where their passport's from. Give them all a shot and let them have a go at it, right? And, like you say, there's lots of talented guys out there. And, as a matter of fact, guys that are playing in the Canadian, it's a big transition, of course, to go to 12-man football. The field is, about 14, 15 yards wider. You actually need a stronger arm to be playing in the Canadian Football League. Crazy as it is, right? But I remember back to my Simon Fraser days. We would, in my senior year, we played 7 schools like Idaho, Montana, but we also played Calgary and Saskatchewan and UBC, of course, right? And it was a big change from, the American game to the Canadian game. And I was going, whoa, I don't know if I can throw a wide side out in this game, right? It's a lot different when you're playing, right? So, yeah, these guys, they're talented quarterbacks, right? And I think more and more, quarterbacks are getting the training that they need. They're playing more and more 7-on-7. Now we see flag football, of course, more and more when you're looking, I look through social media and everywhere is, they're playing flag football in the indoor facilities. Of course, out here in BC, we're able to, run camps outside and do the 7-on-7. 7-on-7 football is huge now in British Columbia. There's, 4 or 5 teams in Vancouver alone that go down to the States and they compete in Vegas and Phoenix and Seattle all the time, right? And I see everywhere now their indoor facilities are, having flag football tournaments, and I see some quarterback camps going on indoors, in the prairies now. And I think it's going to continue to grow, and I think the quarterbacks are going to continue to get better.
You think flag football overtakes, maybe not totally, but do you think flag football takes over from tackle football at some of these universities because of injury, because of expenses and that type of thing, where there might be more of an appetite to field a flag football team instead of a men's tackle football team? I'm not advocating for that.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there because there are women flag football teams at the youth sports level.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think what's going to happen, I think the youth sport football programs are strong. I think they're going to be solid. Maybe the smaller schools like, the Kamloops University in BC. Here we've got University of Northern British Columbia. Again, Thompson Rivers in Kamloops. Maybe the smaller schools, might develop more of a flag football league that they can play in. But I definitely think that U Sport is going to continue to have strong teams with the core that they have. I mean, I can't imagine that, say, Canada West. I can't imagine that any of the teams in Canada West would drop their football program. And not that we're getting into that of being a Simon Fraser alumni, of course, right? But which is a sad day for all of us.
Honestly, what a travesty that is. And I think it's indicative of a lot of universities in Canada, to be quite honest. They're run by people that really don't care about sports. The teams themselves, like the coaches, the support staff, the players, they treat it with the reverence and dedication and hard work it deserves. It's the people in administrative roles, in my opinion, not yours, mine, maybe you'll agree, that treat it barely better than intramural sports. And that's when I was helping my son make his decision. But let's be honest, I was the guy along with his mom paying the freight. We're like, you got a chance to go to the University of North Dakota. You're going there because they give a shit about sports down there. And not just about sports, but it was a good school. That was important too. You don't want to send him to the middle of nowhere United States just to play football. You want him to get a good degree. But he came back to Canada to play for the Dinos because he wanted to get used to the Canadian game before the draft this year, right? So that's why we did that. But I find like that's a travesty what happened in SFU. It was pathetic. That's all I'm going to say. Just pathetic.
Yeah. Oh, well, no question. I mean, I see how you feel, passionate about football. Imagine what, a guy like me is, being an alumni, and gosh, I would have never, be where I am today without playing football at Simon Fraser. So, still are my brothers that we played with. We still stay in touch with each other. We're always, happy birthday, Merry Christmas, Happy St. Patrick's Day, all those kind of, we still stay in touch. And, we're beyond being mad almost, right? It's just a sad day that, and the way they did it too, right, is just terrible. The day after spring training, kids were just getting ready for the final exams, like in an hour and that day. And it was just, not that there's an easy way to do it, but it was just terrible news, especially since they just brand new facility, brand new locker room. It just, it was a terrible time.
Okay, so let me ask you this question to quarterbacking, the science of quarterbacking. Dan Marino is one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time, and he said you cannot teach somebody to be accurate. They're either accurate or they're not accurate. They can have arm strength, but they're either accurate or not accurate. Do you agree with that comment from Dan Marino? Can you make somebody accurate, or do you kind of have to have the basis of accuracy to start with?
Right. Well, with no disrespect to one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, I definitely feel, and obviously my coaching hat on, right? I definitely feel you can work on accuracy, and I think the younger you are, the more important it is, right? Because there's definite mechanics, getting your throwing elbow in the, close to the target. I always kind of say, get that right elbow, you're right-handed, get your right elbow is like a laser beam to your receiver. Sure, it's going to be maybe outside a little bit, but for the most part, and get your, your shoulders square, your hips square, and your lead foot, you're again, right-handed, your left toe's got to be, fairly close to your target, right? So, especially to generate power to get your core through and so on. So I definitely think that you can improve your accuracy. And the thing that is happening now more and more with quarterbacks is, of course, moving on the run, right? We're not just stable and we're not stationary. Unfortunately, there's some offensive lines out there that aren't the greatest, right? And, you're going to be moving all the time, right? You're going to be so definitely, those coaching points, just to kind of be brief with that, but those coaching points are very, very important. And we have all sorts of drills that, we run to, make sure that quarterbacks are accurate.
So is it, how do I put this? Maybe it's a hard question to answer. You always have to be, I don't care if you're a scrambler or a runner, you still probably for half the game at least have to be able to throw from the pocket with people collapsing around your feet and keeping your eyes downfield. So what makes you more of an elite quarterback these days? Do you think being able to throw on the run, or being able to stand in the pocket when everything's collapsing around you and guys are at your feet? One of my favorite quarterback, like Marino was a favorite quarterback of mine. One of my favorites, didn't have the best throwing motion, but he was the best at standing in the pocket, was Phillip Rivers. Guys would be all over him. They'd be at his feet. He had all the mobility of a phone booth. I know that's going the way of the dodo bird,
yeah.
But he would stand in there and he'd be able to keep his eyes downfield. So what makes you more elite? Rolling out and throwing on the run, or being able to stand in the pocket when everything's collapsing around you?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question, and it's kind of a combination, certainly, of both. But you really, and we work a lot of drills where you're focusing. I mean, I'll have a bag and I'll be whacking a kid all the time, or I'll be kind of throwing a bag at their feet and making sure that their chin is up, their posture is proper. So there's certainly the mechanics of, proper posture, which of course we really, really stress. And then of course the technique of throwing on the run as well, right? So I think that the quarterback nowadays just has to be able to kind of be like a Josh Allen, right? Where, you don't have to be the fastest guy, but just when you need to take off and when you need to gain those extra yards, like, Nathan Rourke is obviously very good at that. Vernon Adams, I think, is good at that, right? So I think that's a feature that, quarterbacks have to have. They don't have to be the fastest guy out there. I mean, certainly helps when you're like Trey, but I mean, you don't have to be the fastest guy, but it's just that initial poise in the pocket and to stand in there, you're going to get hit, right? I always talk to the kids about, I think like a guy like Kyler Murray, right? Even though he's short, 5'10"-ish, right? I mean, I think he gets out of there way too fast, right? I mean,
yeah.
He's, you got to stand in there and you got to know that you're going to take a hit, right? So toughness is, definitely such an important part. And, some kids obviously can't handle that. And I mean, my body still hurts from getting hit as much. I mean, of course, and I played on the old tartan turf, right?
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
So I was fortunate not to have too many injuries, but you certainly, and I think that toughness, you can coach that. You can coach focus, like I'm always talking about, where's your eyes, get your chin up, make sure your posture is good. And, we have times when we're just throwing routes to receivers, but we'll have the receiver fall down or just go down on one knee, and it's time to tuck it in and go, right?
Yeah.
But you got to teach that stuff, right? It doesn't necessarily come natural. And that's where, I feel that the camps are just so beneficial for these quarterbacks to, and at my camps, I know a lot of other quarterback coaches do that, right? But just having played the position and knowing that, okay, we got to work a scramble drill, right? We got to work a drill where you got to get over a bag, or you got to step up into the pocket, or you got to step up into the A gap, or you got to step up in the B gap, or you got to spin out of there. All those things are just things that we work on in camp. Taking a snap, just footwork. Always. I remember Craig Smith, of course, who everybody knows in Regina, great coach, great guy. He used to talk about the fact that footwork was just the thing that he looked at when he went down and scouted all the NFL teams and so on, right? So it is such a combination of all those things that combine, and hopefully you get a quarterback that's pretty good out of that.
Yeah, and it's funny with footwork. We were talking about Ben Hebert in curling. When I watch those guys sweep, like a Ben Hebert sweep, and he's focused looking down the sheet, but he somehow he's sweeping. and the rocks are there, but he's not kicking any of the rocks. His feet are, it's amazing. Same with quarterbacks. They drop back to pass. It's like, it's a 5-step drop, and I know, or a 3-step drop, sometimes 7, although I don't know how many guys do 7s anymore, but it's like bang, bang, bang. And when you get to that last one, you got to get that ball out. It's a science. And never mind, that's with a clean pocket. What happens if dudes are all around you and you got to keep your, like, there's so much that goes into being a quarterback. That's why they get paid the most money.
Yeah, that's right. And it's just, and I think you can teach some of those things. I think you can teach feel. I think, we'll stand there and I'll have like 8 beanbags and just throw it at a kid's legs and throw it at his midsection. And he's got to still focus down the field, but he's got to move out of the way, right? He's got to move, readjust himself and get his feet straight and, videotape him and take a look at, where's your feet when you threw this? Well, you didn't get a lot on it because, your feet weren't right. So thus you couldn't get your core through. So, it's just such a scientific kind of deal where you got to work on all those things. And again, it's not just, one day, like a lot of kids will come to my 3-hour camp and there'll be, I was at the Jay Prepchuk quarterback camp. I'm going to be a great player. Well, you got to work at it, right? You got to work. There's drills that I give them to do at home all the time, 100 reps every day, just like Kobe Bryant shooting shots, Steph Curry, right? I mean, you have to work on it all the time. It's not just, it's not just to go to one camp and I'm going to be a great quarterback.
Yeah. I remember doing a funny story about toughness. You're mentioning toughness. I remember Ricky Ray. I'm doing the sideline reporting for the Riders for a good chunk of my career. And Ricky Ray got absolutely destroyed by Charleston Hughes. Ricky's on Toronto, and the drive started at the 10, 2 plays in, he got absolutely destroyed, and he gets lifted up by his lineman, and it was towards the end of the game, so they had no timeouts and they had to go, and they're going hurry up offense. So think about this. He's winded. He's the quarterback. He's got to go into the huddle and probably say, he's trying, and then he's got to go to the line where everybody in Mosaic Stadium's in full throat. He has no breath. He's trying to bark the cadence out, and they went on a, like think about this. If Jay Prepchuk's the quarterback and Michael Ball's the receiver, and Michael Ball gets absolutely shellacked, he runs back to the huddle. Well, you don't have to call a play for Ballsy for 2 plays, right? He's a receiver. We don't have to. Right. If you're the fucking quarterback, you're the guy. So it was a 10-play drive. They went in for a touchdown. I'm like, holy crap! Like that is, you don't really understand that when you're up in the stands, when you're on the sidelines, and see he comes off to the sidelines and he can still barely breathe. That's a big time stud right there.
I remember those days, and that's why Ricky Ray is, was one of the best. I remember going back in the huddle in Montana and guys having to kind of lead me into the huddle and and direct me into the right spot, and even lining up over the guard one time to take a center. The center's going, Jay, no, I'm here.
Well, here, Jay,
man, because you're going to get hit, and it's just that. One thing I always remember as a quarterback is I never stayed down, right? I'd get hit hard, often, right? And boy, oh boy, I never stayed down. I never gave the satisfaction of a defensive lineman or linebacker making the sack. I never gave him the satisfaction of knowing that I was really, really hurt.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, before I let you go, we're talking about, this is the one thing that bugs me about BC. It's maybe not just BC. I think it's Toronto. You guys play American rules in high school for some of them and Canadian for some of them. We're in frickin' Canada. Why are we not playing all Canadian rules? That part really drives me nuts. Like I get where, this whole talk about the 51st state. Who's kidding who? We are kind of the 51st state already without saying it, okay?
Right.
And even in the way we look at sports and our products, our iPhones and all that stuff. But why are we playing Canadian football there full time? That drives me nuts, man.
Yeah. It is kind of crazy. I mean, way back in the 40s and 50s, I guess, when UBC, was starting football, they would play down in the States, right? So they played all American teams and American rules. And so the teachers that came out, the coaches, the teachers, the educators that went on to coach high school football in BC, they all were basically raised on American football, right? So then when schools were built and fields were built, I mean, all the fields here just have 10-yard end zones, right? We don't have enough room to even put a 20-yard end zone, or they're not wide enough to go 65 yards, right? So we can't even really fit the field in there, right? So it is unfortunate. I know Jamie Terrace with BC Lions always talks about it, right? I would love to see us playing Canadian football. I think it would emphasize the pass a lot more, and obviously the kicking game a lot more as well, right? So that's kind of the history of things. That UBC was the originator really of football for high school football. All the teachers and so on played against American teams, so they were all kind of used to the American game. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. I wish we could change as well.
Okay, two more quick questions. Have you noticed the Amar Doman influence and how he's trying to, like, there's a game in Victoria and they've got another game they just sold out for the preseason. Do you notice that there's a bit more BC Lions talk, CFL talk in BC since Doman took over the team?
Oh my gosh, you would not believe the transition, right? And BC is kind of a fickle place that way, right? Prairies, I know we all love our football in the prairies, right? But in BC, it's like, oh, well, are we going to go skiing? Are we going to go golfing? Are we taking the boat out today? Are we going to the cottage? I know that happens in the prairies as well, right? But it is, you know what, Ballsy? It is an unbelievable difference now, what he has done and just taken over. I've got to know him. I've got to know Mr. Dolman and had a chance to talk to him. And, he's involved in so many different areas of football. His sons play flag football in North Vancouver here, and he's one of the coaches and just one of the great guys in football and one of the great guys in BC today.